Okay, welcome to Watercolor Studio 42. I'm going to be doing another picture today, and it's going to be a little bit what I call lineism, or you could call maybe realism, possibly. That's another term. We were just talking about it. There's no such thing as, well, that I know of, that they call of the isms, that's called lineism or realism. But nevertheless, I usually start off with a pencil sketch first, and then very light, and then go over that with the ruler, some straight edges, and you can vary the width of the line, but more or less you stick with everything that has straight edges. Now, for textures, sometimes you can put dots in, and as I mentioned before, one time a dot is the beginning of a line. When it hits the page or the paper, once you extend the dot, it becomes a line. So I can get away with some dots and specks and so forth. So this is sort of a out west scene from one of the country magazines, and they travel all around the place trying to find some beauty spots here and there, and certainly our country has quite a variation, I should say, of beautiful places to visit and look at. So I'm going to get started, and so far I've got a little bit of an outline here of the contour of the hills in the background, sort of like a desert scene, a typical scene you might see in Arizona or New Mexico, in that general area. So anyways, I'm going to start off, and usually I start off with the sky, and what we'll do is put a light wash on. Let me see if I can find a bigger brush here. I haven't used my flat 1-inch brush for a while. Let's try that. I'm going to wet the paper. In this particular photograph that I'm looking from, it's a picture on the back cover of a country magazine, and like I said, I probably didn't look up exactly where it's located, but it's somewhere out there, New Mexico, around that part of the country, Arizona and so forth. So you wet your paper, and then it has sort of a soft wash of blue sky. So let's put a little bit of that in. Get some paint on the brush here. Now that is a little bit darker than the photograph, okay? So having said that, I'm just gonna blend some of that in and keep it a little bit lighter towards the ground. As you come down through the atmosphere, sometimes way up there in the meridian, you come down through, and you're looking through the density of the atmosphere. So the upper meridian of the sky looks bluer, and down here it can get a little bit lighter. I don't think there's a little bit of blue in here somewhere, but we just put a little wash of that in here, ever so slight. Okay, that's that. Come across here, outline the hills here. And because I added some water, put some water on the paper first, when you add the blue paint, it just blends in. You can kind of slide the brush around easy. So I always wet the paper, especially if the sky, in this photograph, it's not a cloudy day. It's a clear, soft blue sky. No clouds. Okay, that looks pretty good. Get some of the smooth that out. And just put a hint of blue in there a little bit. Down in this area. Yeah. Okay. I want to try to get this a little bit smoother if I can. It's a clear, relatively clear sky. You can always see a little soft patches of maybe some clouds. You know, there's sort of a little bit transparent, some of the clouds, so you can just lift a little bit of the paint out to make it look like some soft clouds in there. Okay, so I'm going to let that set up. Now, let's see what we can do. The next thing I want to do is start off, if there's some yellow. There's always going to be some yellow normally in most outdoor pictures. Yellow mixed with greens and so forth. This particular photograph has a lot of color, so we can put some yellow. There's some patches of yellow over here, right on top of that little wash of blue, and that will sort of make it look greener there. Okay, put a patch of yellow in here. Over here, there's some over here, the distribution of that color. You see some patches of that in here. Let's see where else. Let's move across here. I think you can put a little bit of yellow in there too, right across, and bump up into here a bit. Now, you notice I'm not working from the top exactly down. What I'm doing is letting the sky dry out before I do the nice sharp contours of the, I guess I suppose you could call them mountains or something, but ledges, whatever. Okay. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, why don't you use some of my raw sienna? That has some little patches in here, over here. Distribution of a color here. And I always emphasize that a lot because usually that's what happens. That's what unifies a painting. When you distribute the color a little bit more. Let's put some of that down in here. There's a wash of that near the bottom edge too. We'll put some of that in here across the bottom. I've been putting the tape around the edges here to create sort of a false mat. You normally put a white mat on your watercolor paintings. So I just leave the paper there white. Go right down to the edge, go across, kind of fades up into there. Now, the intensity of the colors today is so bright that I don't have to worry about coming in really, quite heavy with the brush. Do a little bit of this in here. Okay. See how that's coming out. Cross over here. Okay. What you want to do, a lot of times, you want to get a lot of the flat washes, the background, a lot of that in ahead of time. And you're safe enough by using yellow. Always sort of the base color. Yellow, especially pictures that anything that's outdoors, you can get away with yellow very much. Okay. There's some colors in there that are beautiful. There's some nice purples in there that are really nice. Get it off there. If you can see the magazine picture, it's the back cover. Sometimes the print that might be on the bottom, it could be distracting, but don't let it bother you. Sometimes you just cover it. A lot of times I'll crop a picture from a magazine. I won't use the whole picture. I'll just move my little window around, look at it, and pick out a good spot and just cut out that area to save for a painting. You don't need excessive amounts of texture everywhere. Sort of pull. Sometimes you can pull things in, take things out, whatever you want to do with it. Okay, how's my sky drying? Pretty good? Good. Okay. I think we're all set on that. All right, now, probably I can come in with a very bright orange for some of this area through here. And that could be like a base color. So let's take my palette here, see what we got. We got red. Let's put some red in one of these wells here, and we're going to take. This is a sort of firehouse red here, and put a little bit of yellow in there. They come up with some funny names. Sometimes the different companies, they'll name it the fire truck red or firehouse red, orange, whatever. I usually don't have orange because I know I can always mix my yellow in. Red, mix yellow into the red, and go from there. Okay, I'm getting some of those brighter colors in across there. The intensity of the color is quite vibrant today. Really jumps out quite a bit. And that color, what I do sometimes is I take this brush here, my big brush, blot it a little bit, take some of the paint out of it, and I take some of this color that's here and just pull it down in, sort of unevenly. You can sort of bring some of these colors, pull some of that color down into somewhat of the foreground here. Okay, now up here it gets very dark, very bright. And pull some of that in there. Put a little wedge of color up in that. And it gets dark up in here. Much darker than what I have on my brush right now. And the color is very, very bright. Get some more yellow in there, orange. Okay, and pull that down straight. Off of there. Let's have this go right to the edge of the tape. And I'm going to just pull some of this down in through here. in the lower area. Now, if you want that that contour line of the hills or the mountains, sometimes you have to make sure the sky's dry, otherwise it will keep kind of bleeding up into the sky part. There you go. Come down around here. Pull some of that into here. Now, you can also, while you're at it, you can take a credit card, a little piece of plastic. I usually use credit cards myself. Let's go right up into there. Pull that out to the edge of the tape. Can be any kind of piece of firm piece of plastic that you can use. Catch that edge there. Okay. Before this sets up too much, you can take that plastic, and if you want to pull a little bit more texture out of the rocks, the hills in the background, we can do that. Go something like this. Where's a little piece of plastic I have over here? All right. I keep these little chips of card, and while the paint's still wet, you can kind of plow through it and pull some of that texture, the paint down right in here. Make it a little lighter in there. See, all I'm doing is plowing, pulling the paint around to create more texture. Try to get bring out more of the color of the hills in the background. And kind of go in the direction of what the photograph kind of indicates, what to do with it. There you go. A little more through here. All right. Now that's that for, and we could use this somewhere else. You know, later on when I do some of the bushes, I could probably do some of that texturing with a piece of plastic. So don't hide it. We'll keep it handy over here so we know where it is. You can cut up different shapes of plastic to use. Now, if you want to get a little fussier, you can still use a flat brush, but you might want to come back in here and bring out a little bit more of the texture. I'm going to take a little bit of that red, put it in, mix it in with the blue, red and blue here. A little bit more red to it, see what happens. And what I'm going to do, up around the top edges, we're going to just clean that up a little bit more with some color in there. Just go across the top, pull it down. You can kind of pull it right out of here, pull it, you know, kind of look at the picture, see what's happening there, where the color is, and just pick it up across here, pull it down a bit. You can go back and rework this too a little bit more if you want with the piece of plastic right along this ridge up in here. We can make this whole thing a little bit darker. Now, again, I'm going to kind of take some of the paint out of the brush and moisture out of the brush and just pull some of the color down into here. Just kind of break it up a little bit. Okay, now get a little bit more blue into this, a little bit more red. See if I can go a little bit darker in certain areas. Pull it down. Now you can kind of lift up on the brush if you want to make it look a little bit more textural. A little bit bumpier with the contour edge. And you're going to take some of that down, pull some of that out of there. Oops. Let me get that too. I take too much paint away there. And you go right along through here, hit those top edges. See how you can pull that down? We need a little bit more contrast right across up in here. We can put a little bit more color up in there. You can bump it up a little bit more too. Right a little bit there, a little bit in here, so forth. I take some of that out of there. This might be a little bit darker than I wanted it. Let's give that a little scratch with the, we'll see what we can do with the texture here. Okay. Pull some of that out. Pull it down. So as you work, you're kind of going along here, seeing what needs to be done. You can always, if the edge doesn't look good, you can always go back and kind of clean it up a little bit more. Some more water on the brush here. And you can drop some of that, break it down into here. A little bit more texturing. There's quite a bit of texture. So you can work that in. Now you can either pull up or you can pull down. In this case, I guess it's all right to keep pulling this down into here. Go along, do a little touch-up work. Now sometimes what I do too, before I finish, I kind of go a little bit back with my marker and go over the contour, kind of clean that up a little bit more. Yeah. Pull this in here, break this up. Okay, let's go up in here a little bit, see what we can do. Make this a little darker. Right across there. A little notch into here. And again, we can pull that back down. Now, when you're doing this, the beauty of watercolor is that, you can go back in, and if you don't like a particular area, just put some water on the brush and just pull some of that out. Moisten the paper. Maybe you can take a little piece of plastic, go back over that and scratch it a little bit to bring back more of the texture that you're looking for in the picture. See what else we can do here. Okay, want to get that a little darker up in there along this contour. I think what I do with this one is just take a marker later on and just kind of rework that contour a little bit more. We'll pull this down into here. Now, along in through this area, there's going to be some darker color also, and that can be sort of a purplish color. Let's get some more red back into the blue here. And we can work some of that into here. I'm using a flat brush, 1/2 inch, and you can work some of that texture back up into there. And again, while it's wet, what I usually do sometimes, to get the effect, go back in and just kind of scrape it a little bit, with your piece of plastic there. This needs to be kind of busy through there. Maybe I have to take some of that out, lighten it up. Let's pull down through here a bit. I'm going to have that go to the edge too. Okay. Now sometimes what I do also, I can take like a razor blade and kind of scratch it a little bit. Excuse me. Okay, it gets real bright in through here. So let's see if I can get some of that yellow, more orange back. Maybe perk it up a little bit more through here. Little patches all over the place of plants. A lot of texture. A little bit more up in here. Now this is kind of fun to do. Sometimes if it doesn't look right, you can always kind of keep painting over it and keep working it until you get more of the effect that you're looking for. Sometimes you can't hit it just right the first time. You just rework it a little bit more. Maybe you can take your brush and pull through it and lift some of that out, some of that texture. You don't need too much of that. And sometimes you might have to use a little bit more yellow, let it dry, and just come back a little stronger with some yellow in places like that. Over here, put some more color back into it. Back up into here. This is loaded with color. Now I don't want to spend an awful lot of time up on the hill here, because I've got quite a bit of texturing I want to do down in this lower portion. So we'll see what we can do there. That has a little bit of everything. Down in here, looks like you've got some raw sienna. Put some of that in. not bad using a flat brush for some of this. I think I'm going to go back later on, and like I was telling everybody earlier, that I may have to go kind of clean up the contour. Now, what we've got down here, we've got a little bit of everything. There's another color I had in here. I thought I had, yeah, why don't we use some of this Lizard and Crimson, and that can go in there. Been holding on to that paper towel for too long. We'll take a cleaner one here. Okay, that's better. All right, now let's see if we can get this, pull some of this out. We're going to put some of this quinacridone rose. It's Lizard and Crimson, same thing. And we're going to put some of that color. We see patches of it over here. We can get some of that in there. A lot of it out through here. Get some of that in there. Like I was saying, this color, this painting has a lot of vibrant color. Get some of that in there. I'm looking at the picture, but I'm also getting some of that effect. I hope I could use some of that in my own application here of the paint. Now you can also use a razor blade later on too, and you can go over this and scratch some of the paint out, expose some of the white paper coming back up through it. Or you can even go over it with a little bit of white paint to begin with. I don't know if I want that color to be that much red in it. Let me take some of that out. We're going to go back into here. Go down to the edge. A lot of fine texture in here. A lot we can do with this. Let some of that background show through, maybe. I'm still looking at what's happening up in here. Okay. Now this is more or less kind of suggested. If we wanted to spend a lot of time doing in all the little linear stuff, it would take us quite a while. Fill this in across the bottom. I can always go back into this, take a marker. When it gets dry, you can always put more texture, more texture into the picture. See what we can do up here. I don't need so much of that. I'm leaving a lot of this lighter wash to show through here. I use photographs, but I also take a lot of liberty on my own, I guess you might say, and kind of put in some of my own rendering here. Probably stand to have a little bit more blue in that too. Let's lean towards some more blue. Get some of that blue in there. And when you do this, and I always emphasize that you always move around. If you use a color in one spot, you just make sure you find somewhere else to use it. It's easy to do here because there's so much texture to begin with. And it's getting to be a little bit too much in there. So what I do, if I don't like too much in there, I just take it out. Lift it, take it out, use the brush like a sponge. Work around it like that. Now, see what else. Now, I was going to chop this up a little bit. Maybe we want to get maybe just a little bit more, a touch of green in there too. It might have a little bit of green in it, here and there. Again, if you put that color in, make sure you repeat it somewhere else. It's kind of fun to do some of these color things once in a while. Texture, a lot of texture. Of course, what I try to do is take all that busy texture, kind of break it down a little bit more. You can't quite duplicate it completely. Okay, let's see where we're at. Now, if this is drier up here, it's getting there. I might come back, use a maybe larger marker. I hope this has enough ink in it. And just very carefully, just go over some of the contour. Pull that down in there. Kind of sharpen it up a bit. Now, if you go too far, you have to kind of clean it up a little bit more. You don't want to make it too bumpy. But you can kind of clean it up a bit. That's still wet, that's why the marker's not taking that too well. Well, you want to come along here. This can be cleaned up in here. Get that edge a little better. Yeah. Go up into here. Go along here. And make that a lot stronger. Now, I want to see if I can cut into this a little bit more. Get more of a darker shadow down in there. And what you can do with all of this is just pull some of this out. You have to make sure the the edges are dry enough. Otherwise, the marker doesn't work on wet edges. Along through here. Yeah. See how you can really strengthen up the picture. Now, there's going to be some little areas that get a little bit darker, maybe in here. Sometimes you don't have to use a black marker. You can use a color marker in some of these areas. And just kind of emphasize certain contours. Maybe a little bit more down through here. Yeah. I don't like this one here. This edge is still a little bit too bumpy. I want to kind of smooth it off a little bit more. Yeah. Bring this in a little bit more. Cut that in there. Okay. It's starting to get, it's building up. It gets a little bit stronger as you go along. The more you do with it. And you can make certain things kind of have a little bit more strength and contour into here. You have to let it dry. Otherwise, if it's still wet, it doesn't work as well. But you may want to kind of make certain areas stronger, you know, emphasize it a little bit more. Over in here, we do a little bit more, see what we can do. Okay, this looks kind of flat through here. So I don't know if I can break that up a little bit more. Do something with that. Cut into this. Maybe chop into here a little bit more. It's still a little bit wet, so the marker doesn't take to it as much. This is still a little bit bumpy here. I want to clean that up. Okay, there's still a few little bumpy edges that need to be touched up a bit. And that looks like a funny shape up there, so I'm going to change that a little bit more. If I can fill that in. Okay, it's still not quite what I want. And fill that in, make that darker here. Yeah, better than it was. Now you can always come back in, take a smaller brush if you want, and if there's any other little areas that you want to fix up, you can always come back in with your little brush and touch up here and there. You pull some of that texture down through here. Yeah, you can work it with a smaller brush. Yeah, take some of that out. So you can see how that's coming along and through here. Now, with a smaller brush also, You could possibly just break that up with a little bit more texture into here. Kind of lift up so that the brush goes out to a point. Some of it looks like grass and weeds and stuff growing in through here. There's hundreds of little markings in here, but I just sort of suggested a little bit more. So this gives you an idea. It's starting to look halfway decent. I certainly have some bright color here. The photograph has even more color on those hills back right up and through here than I have. Pull that out. Stand back and look at. Now this is one of those pictures that probably would be better not to do as much with it. In other words, kind of suggest some of the texture that might be in here, but you can't get it all in, you know. And what really is stronger in this painting is actually the contours of hills back here. Trying to erase some of my brush marks. Sometimes you can get too busy with it. Yeah, something like that. Well, I think I have more, I've captured some of the intensity of the color. It still might need a little bit more, you know, fussy work here and there, but other than that, I don't know if I do much more with it. Do something, I don't know if I can break this up in there a little bit. Just give it a little bit more of a contrast there. Maybe soften some of this out. Take some of that out of there. You don't need to have it. Sometimes the less you do here is a lot better. Make it more suggestive, you know, of what it is. Most of the deserts in the Arizona, New Mexico, they call them botanical deserts, but because it isn't just sand. It isn't just sand. There's a lot of growth of plants and things. So it makes it more interesting. Now what I'm trying to do here is just kind of get rid of some of that extra, you know, that busy stuff. And if you tried to copy the photograph, you'd be all day too fussy with all those plants in there. So what you have to do a lot of times is you have to more or less suggest something, you know, that's there. Okay, I think right along here I got to go a little darker so that that false border, oh, not that dark. Yeah, take some of that out of there. Just make sure you get painted right up against the edge of your tape. Okay, something like that. I haven't done too many of these Western paintings lately, but they certainly have a lot of color. Almost pretty well finished up here. Might still have to kind of rework a little bit of the contour, but I'm going to kind of let that dry out a bit more. I guess this along here is okay in the foreground. It's a lot of plants and things in there. I don't know, tumbleweed or something. I don't know what it might be. Let's darken that edge. I think I got everything done where the tape is on the edge. I think that's okay. Should be all right. Like I said, this is still a little bit bumpy here, but right now I don't want to fuss with it. Let it dry and go over it a little bit later. It certainly is a painting with color. No problem about color. Plenty of color. It's a little bit warmer. Maybe up in here is a little bit more texture. I think I've got a little darker blue here. In the photograph down here along the base, it's sort of a almost pinkish shell pink here. Sometimes you can take some of that out, let it dry, and just go over it with some white acrylic paint or something, lighter color. Okay. Almost there to a point. Now, if I did any more with it, I think I'd let the contour dry a little bit more, and maybe just clean it up. It's a little bit kind of bumpy right now. I'm going to see if I can pull this tape off. I'm getting better at how to put the tape on and be able to pull it off easier. See how it's getting a lot better than what I was doing in the past. Yeah. Like I said, right across here, I'm just going to kind of clean that up later on with a marker, and I may kind of put a little bit more texture in through here, although the photograph doesn't bring out too much of a stronger texture, but just to clean up the edges a little bit more. Maybe make sure I got some little more darker suggestions of the plants and things. You can come across here and just hit it with even some polka dots, creates a little texture to it. Okay, so that's that for. I don't know what part of the country it is. I'll call it Arizona, I guess, or somewhere out there. But that's the picture for the day. So I like to do pictures that have a lot of nice color to them, maybe stronger shapes and whatnot when I work on the pictures. So pick up a brush. Hey, here's one here. Okay, brushes up, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for being with us today.